Today marks the 10th anniversary of Platinum Games. I'm not going to go too much into the history of them. I wrote about that over on GameSpew, but for right now, I'm basically going to be talking about all the games that released, my reactions to them, my thoughts, etc. And yes, I do have a cold right now, so apologies for that. But other than that, let's get right to the show. The first game they released was MadWorld for the Wii. Now, this is a art similar to manga, I would say, black and white, very stylized. It's kind of like The Running Man, or I guess a modern example is The Hunger Games, wherein people are put into this city and they're entertainment for a larger crowd. And basically, they're trying to compete for an award, and the game is all about killing. So you're this guy, you're killing stuff, you are doing crazy things with signposts, and you're jacking them in the head with it, or you're putting them in trash cans. And it's all fairly fun, and the Wii controls actually work rather well, I suppose. But like a lot of brawlers, it is very repetitive. The art style kind of starts to fade after a while. The story does really nothing. It's goofy, sure, but from the pedigree that was Platinum Games, it wasn't a good first start, but it was an interesting concept to say the least. Their next game was Infinite Space for the DS. Now this is kind of like a turn-based RPG, but instead of characters you use the spaceship, and the characters kind of tell the story essentially. It's similar to Star Trek. You man the helm, you go into space, and you fight other spaceships. It's fine. I didn't really play this one, truthfully, that much. Just a little bit for this retrospective. But nothing really grabbed me about it. The space fighting is just kind of blah. The RPG mechanics or whatever, so is the story. But, again, a cool concept, but, you know, still nothing crazy from Platinum Games. Next, we have Bayonetta, and for the purpose of the retrospective, I'm just going to dish on both of them right now. So all three of these games came out in 2009. This was the last one that came out that year, and it was a smash hit. It really showed the signs of what Platinum was capable of, and this was a spiritual successor, truth be told, of Devil May Cry for sure, except instead of Dante, there is a witch with crazy hair powers, and instead of guns in her hands, she has guns on her heels. Well, she has guns in her hands too, but over-the-top action, just brutal. The witch time, which you slow down things, fighting the angels, all fantastic ideas. And the goofy story, just cheesy enough to like, as well as the characters. And I think I'm more partial to the second game, of course, and it was great to see Nintendo help them, along with Sega, to create a new game exclusively for the Wii U, and especially, I love all the cameo stuff that they increased in there, having all the Nintendo-themed suits in there, and as well as having the Wii U version of Bayonetta in there with, again, more cameos and nods to the Nintendo properties. It's really cool. It was one of the best things probably about the Wii U, but I'm not going to get into dishing on the Wii U now, but fair to say, Bayonetta is probably the starship of this fleet of games. I'm losing an analogy here. Bayonetta is the best game they made, by and large. Both games, I would have to say. The hits keep on coming, of course, with Vanquish, their next game in 2010. This came for the PS3 and Xbox 360. I did mention it before, but PS3 and Xbox 360 as well for the Bayonetta, and then Wii U for Bayonetta 2. Anyway, I digress. So, this game I really, really like, and I think it reviewed well. It did not sell well, but I think it holds a very special place in a lot of reviewers and just game enthusiasts' hearts. Again, another over-the-top action title. It kind of held the whole Space Marine badge on its shoulder and wore it proudly. It was kind of a critique almost at that, or at least turning up to like 1,000%. But the cool thing about this is you have this suit, and your gun can turn into a variety of guns, and you can just like power slide as you're defeating these robots. And it has like witch time as well. I can't remember what the time slowing down is called in this one, but you can slow down time in this robotic suit, and you're just like a badass, and you're fighting robots, and you have like you're smoking, and then your CO has like a bigger cigar, and you know, it's a whole analogy to wagging your dick around, but I think it's a really, really cool game, and I'm really sad that this game doesn't have a sequel. I think Nintendo should get on the ball with this, and maybe this will be a NX launch title, Vanquish 2. That would be amazing. I think it's truly, truly underappreciated for sure of the last generation of games. I'd even take a Platinum Collection hits kind of thing for the PS4 or what have you. In 2012, they released their first sequel with Anarchy Reigns, and despite the name, this actually is a successor to MadWorld. It stars the same character and the same basic concept, except it is a bit jankier. The art is not that great. It just doesn't feel as good. It's not as innovative in terms of like wacky stunt objects smashing into things. It's just a very, very boring brawler. But going online to have, instead of a first-person shooter, it's an online brawler. So that's kind of cool. It was kind of before the whole MOBA character thing, battling other people, came about. I would argue that it's very needless, and like I said, I wish there was a Vanquish sequel, but instead there's a sequel to MadWorld, and I truthfully just didn't really care for it. Metal Gear Rising: Revengeance started off as Metal Gear Solid Rising. It was shown off in E3 2009 as part of the Kojima and Konami collaboration, but the team just kept on hitting struggles, so it was cancelled in 2011, but it actually re-rose from the dead in that same year, where PlatinumGames was announced to be taking over. The original concept was taking place between 2 and 4 to see where Raiden was in that time period, but in actuality, the final game was after Metal Gear Solid 4, so canonically, it's the latest in the franchise. Now, it is full of PlatinumGames' subject, humor, and charm, along with some of the Metal Gear stuff. It seems very disjointed. It doesn't feel like it's really part of the Metal Gear universe. It feels so odd to see all these characters interact in this world that just really doesn't feel like Metal Gear, besides riding, slashing up people. That said, action is fantastic. Using the katana with the analog stick is just so much fun, and slicing and dicing your way through the environment. I also love the soundtrack. It is just so cheesy, and I had to buy it immediately. It's just rock, and just the cheesiest kinds of just butt rock as you kill these enemies, and it's just a fantastic time. Plus, it's like one of the best final bosses ever. It is so over the top. You're fighting a senator, but there's just more to it. Oh my god. This game is so good. But it's good as a PlatinumGames game, but not as a Metal Gear game, if that makes any sense. Next up, the wonderful 101, which released in 2013 for the Wii U. Now, this is kind of a spiritual successor to Beautiful Joe, which is one of the games that the team worked on when they're still at Capcom, part of the Clover Studios logo. And this one, you are basically like a Sentai team out to protect the world. You're from different nations and you're coming together, but you unite ordinary citizens in order to help yourself. And in that way, it's kind of like Pikmin. You gather these citizens, they form into fists or swords. It's very weird, and you stop crime. The whole graphical set of it looks like they're like little wind-up characters. It's a really cool visual style. That said, I didn't really like it that much. Some of the controls are very complicated in terms of forming stuff. The story, it talks way too much. It's not that great. The whole we're the good guys fighting the evil is a really nice nostalgia thing for me. I do like that cheesiness in terms of Saturday morning cartoons, but the day-to-day gameplay is just not that great. The next game was Bayonetta 2, but we already talked about that, so instead we're going to talk about The Legend of Korra, which began their downfall into license-based games. Now this, of course, is based on Nickelodeon's second series of the Avatar shows, and it gets the visual style right. I do like cel shading in games, but that's it. It's very, very bland. Some of the stuff looks, artful in terms of like the action, like the effects of when you're bending and stuff. For a license-based game, it's okay. There are a lot worse ones, obviously, but coming from the pedigree of Platinum, it was just very ho-hum. The same goes for Transformers Devastation. Probably their best license-based thing from the Activision deal that they had, but also not great. It's basically a Bayonetta clone with Transformers, and to those that love the show, there's a lot of nostalgia here, a lot of callbacks to the TV show and the toys, and there's some RPG elements as well. It's kind of like a loot game in that respect. So there's a lot of in-depth actual things tied to it, and there was no really tie to a movie or a TV show, so I think they were given a little bit more time, which is why it's, you know, pretty decent on all levels. Now, Star Fox Zero is such... I've complained about it before on my channel, but it's just not good. To see Star Fox come back from the dead for so long and to see PlatinumGames working on it, it's just... You can tell that their whole dynamic of working between split projects is kind of dwindling here, because they had that, and then the next game, and of course this just is not great. The controls are so weird. How much was it Platinum and how much was it actually Nintendo working with them? I do not know. But Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles Mutants Manhattan, that was all them, and it's just so garbage. The cool thing about it is it's its first 4-player co-op game, which is what they're kind of boasting for Scalebound. But, you know, again, I love the art style, but the action is just very ho-hum, very, very repetitive. It's fine, I guess, but it's not tied to anything, and I would think that they would get the same love that Transformers did, but no, it's super short, super bland, super passable. And that's basically it. I kind of talked about Scalebound. That's their next project, along with Nier Automata, which is another license-based thing, technically. And I have high hopes for Nier, but by this point you can kind of figure out that, yeah, PlatinumGames did come from a really awesome studio in Clover, and they are innovative in that they are not stopping and creating new ideas. At the same time, seeing them work on a lot of license-based stuff like Star Fox and the Activation stuff is just kind of a letdown. It no longer means, oh, PlatinumGames is working on it, that means it's going to be good. It's a toss-up now again. Now they're like, I would say WayForward. WayForward does a lot of awesome license-based stuff, and they have a lot of cool original stuff, which is their shining, but by no means does it make the license-based games fantastic. In terms of license-based games, they're better than any average Joe developer, but yeah. I'm looking forward to seeing what original title they're coming up with next, except for Scalebound, so I detract from that because that game is just not doing it for me. I don't know. But rest assured, they have had a large mark on the industry, so I wish you a very happy 10th anniversary. Again, apologies for the cold. Did you know that was a ReActionExaminer video? If you liked it, you should subscribe to me to keep up with everything that I'm doing. Also, if you have some other interests, like sex for example, check out Tomups, which is a comedy sex podcast thing wherein my best friend and I check out the weird and abnormal and the erotic. And of course, you should support me on Patreon because, hey, I want to make the channel better and I want your help to do so. Plus, if you want to check out my writing, check out Game Jerk, where I have archives and new stuff for all projects, okay? You can find all the stuff and more in the description with the links below. Thanks for watching, and I will see you all next time.